Hello and welcome to another Dread Specters Dominaria set review. I'm Paul Wallace. This is Tony Yeager. You can follow us at Dread Specters. You can also watch us on Twitch at
twitch.tv/Dread Specters.
Mess that up.
We'll get there.
We will. Today we're going to be going over blue. So far the set has been amazing, really great. And we'll see what blues looks like.
Just as a reminder, we are not using the A through F grading scale that you're likely used to. We found that it's a great tool, but it doesn't quite give a good enough picture of what each individual card is going to do and how you're going to want to build your deck. So we decided we'd take it a step further and improve upon it in a way that's friendly to both new players to the game and us experienced spikes. Yeah. So what our grading scale is an analogy to a chessboard. We've been describing Magic for years as a combination between poker and chess. It's just one that you build as you go. So, pawns are going to be your basic support pieces. They exist simply to be pawns. They're really not important to your core strategy. Rooks are your beaters and finishers. Knights are your evasive threats. Bishops are your interaction, your tempo plays, and anything that attacks the game from a different direction than just a creature-based strategy. Your queens are going to be your powerhouses. They are going to just drop and win you the game on the spot. Your kings are going to be your build-arounds. They are very important. They are going to be in decks that have key central strategies as opposed to just good stuff strategies. As we get a couple of cards in, it's going to make a lot more sense. So if you're ready, we're going to hop right in.
Let's do this.
Here we are.
Alrighty. Academy Drake. It's going to be 2 and a blue, kicker 4, so you can pay it in addition to the casting cost. It has flying, it is a 2/2, and if it was kicked, it does enter the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters. What do you think, Tony?
I think this is a fine card. By and large, I'm going to want to cast it for 7, just because this is looking like it's a set where you're going to want to have the biggest, baggedest guy on the field, and that's just going to cost a lot of mana. Mm-hmm. It is a very versatile card in that it's just a Windrake, and Windrake does exactly what we've wanted it to do since it was printed.
Yeah. Flying, so evasive, and probably a mediocre knight then, huh?
Yeah, mediocre knight sounds about right.
Okay. Academy Journey Mage. 4 and a blue. Another creature, human wizard. This spell costs 1 less if you control another wizard. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature and opponent controls to its owner's hand.
And it's a 3/2. This is a classic bishop. It comes down and it disrupts the board in a way that is going to be important. The 5 casting cost is going to hold it back in a very important way, but that only means that we're going to want to get its cost reduction off. If you pack one, pick one, it's kind of the direction that you want to go if that ends up being open, but is just a classic bishop aside from that.
Agree.
Okay.
All right, the Antiquities of War card we're really excited for. Tony in particular. It's going to be 3 and a blue. It is a saga, so it's an enchantment. How they work is when they come into the battlefield, you get to put a lore counter on, or turn the chapter, essentially. Chapter 1, it's going to look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. On the beginning of your next step, after your draw, you'll put another lore counter and trigger the abilities again. Mm-hmm. Chapter 2 is going to be same second verse, same as the first. And then third, all of your artifacts are going to become 5/5 creatures until the end of turn. So, Tony, what do you think about this card?
This is the reason that I'm going to be building Standard Affinity. This is it. It is a 3 of or a 4 of. I'm going to be playing this in Modern Affinity. Come join me on my stream, and we're going to find out together if it's any good. But as we're doing this to get you ready for your pre-release, this is an interesting card. You are going to want a lot of artifacts and legendary creatures, or else you're just going to get nothing from this card. Ultimately, you're just going to want a bunch of artifacts because that's where the payoff is. If you pack one, pick one this, and it's totally worth doing so, you're going to have your work cut out for you in draft, but the payoff is such that it's going to be worth it.
So more of a king, you're thinking?
Oh, absolutely a king.
Nice. All right, Arcane Flight, another great card. 1 blue. It's going to enchant a creature, give it +1/+1, and flying.
All of the auras that we've seen in this set seem playable. This just seems like it's a solid pawn. That turns one of your pawns into a knight.
Alrighty. Artificer's Assistant. Another 1-cost creature, 1 blue. It is flying 1/1. Whenever you cast a heroic spell, scry 1.
This is an interesting card to evaluate because 1 for a 1/1 is never really exciting. The fact that it's got flying helps, but again, it's really, after turn 2 or 3, it's not going to be contributing much. It's saving grace, and the reason that I'm going to play it is that it scries 1. There's really no way to tell how powerful it's going to be right now, but I'm certainly looking forward to trying it.
I agree. Definitely great. The only redeeming factor is that scry 1, really. 1/1 in a set with a lot of enchantments, being flying is okay, arguably, but really the only thing that's really saving this card is that build around her historic mechanic.
Yeah. It's a very weak knight that can get better.
Yeah. Befuddle. Tuna Bloom. It is an instant. Target creature gets -4, -0 until the end of turn, and draw a card.
This is great. It is a bishop. It gives you an extra turn. As we saw in the last one, that big 4, the 4/4 lifelinker, that helps to kind of force their hand in exchanging life totals to get any benefit out of the attack. It's versatile. It's fine. I will probably only run one of them, in spite of the fact that it's good. It's a great card. It replaces itself. It delays their clock by a significant amount. I will always play at least one, but I'm hesitant to do more.
And then that's a very interesting fact, or point that he makes when you put that creature that switches its power with life total. If you do this card in response to that creature's ability,
oh, gross,
their life total will be 0, and they will lose the game. So,
I didn't even think about that.
I didn't think about it till just now when you mentioned that. I was like, oh, yeah, that is definitely an interaction. So be careful, folks.
This is a win condition sometimes against that card.
If this is in your board, did you see that card? You did.
Yeah, you board into blue just because you were forced it or something. Wow.
Oh, yeah, the eye relief. Blink of an eye, 1 and a blue. That is an instant with a kicker cost, 1 and an additional blue. Return target non-permanent to its owner's hand. If this spell was kicked, you get to draw a card.
Great card. It is a bishop. It delays whatever it is that your opponent's doing for a time. Bounce spell's also really good against Evra. Granted, she's a mythic, so I mean, this is a good card, is what I'm trying to say. It replaces itself. It does exactly what the last card did, was just to alleviate the opponent's clock. Great control card if that exists in the format.
Yeah. All right, Cloud Reader Sphinx. It's 4 and a blue. It's a 3/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you get to scry 2.
Great card. It's a knight. It's a fairly powerful knight. Scry 2 really pushes this over the top of what would otherwise be an unexciting card. Scry 2 is very powerful, and I will play this in just about every blue deck.
Agreed. completely. I feel it's a great night. The Scribe too is going to help out a lot, especially in the limited formats.
Yes.
All right, Coldwater Snapper. It's 5 and a blue. It is a creature turtle 4/5 with hexproof.
I love this card. This is the best pawn in blue. 4/5 body. It's going to be able to rumble with just about any creature in this set. Being most of them having 3 or 4 power, it's just going to just gum up the board by itself. And it's impossible for your opponents to kill it without like a pump spell on one of their own creatures. So this is a great card.
Yeah, and subsequently, if you, for an additional blue mana, give it flying and 1/1, it will tango with everything in the set.
Arcane Flight's going to be great. On Sarah's Wings.
Right? This is going to be fun.
In our white set review, we were talking about how auras are going to be great. You throw flying on this. Sorry about that. That was obtrusive. You throw flying on it. You throw vigilance, first strike, and lifelink on it.
Take over the game.
Yes, this is either a rook in your blue-white enchantments deck,
Right.
or the best pawn ever in literally any blue deck that you play. Great card. No, you're good.
Alrighty. Curator's Wand. Tuna Bloom. This is Ward. Yeah. Ward. Reading's fundamental, folks. Enchant Permanent. Enchanted Permanent has Pex proof.
I'm Pex proof. I've just been avoiding the gym.
Right? Anyways, Enchanted Permanent
Leaves
when
the
Enchanted
battlefield.
Permanent leaves the battlefield. If it was historic, I keep wanting to call it heroic, draw 2 cards.
I want to like this card. Like, if you have a Planeswalker in your draft or sealed deck, play it. Play blue, giving your Planeswalkers hexproof, and when you ultimate them, draw 2 cards. So good. I don't know that I'm interested if I don't have a lot of Planeswalkers.
Yeah, no. I agree. Unless you have the creatures to really support this card, it's really a dud. But if you do, if you pulled some Planeswalker, if you got some love from whatever magic powers are out there, this is a great card. Drawing 2 cards after something leaves is going to be amazing.
Although something to note is that the historic deck, it does exist, and this is going to be a role player in that, possibly even as a solid. No, I don't know.
Maybe
it's fine. It's a good card, but we're gonna move on. I think this is a trap. I'm not interested in it unless I have a Planeswalker.
All right, Deep Freeze. 2 and a blue. It is another enchantment, aura. So you enchant a creature, and this creature has base power and toughness, 0/4. Has defender, loses all other abilities, and is a blue wall in addition to its other color types.
This is a bishop, and a fairly odd one. Giving any of your opponent's creatures 4 body is going to make it really difficult for you to get through on the ground. Other than that, it's a great card. Anything with some kind of an ability. You take out any of their good cards with this, and so I'm going to play at least 1, depending on what my creature base, what my pawns look like.
Yeah, if you have a lot of evasive threats, this card is going to be great, especially if you're in like a blue control-y type deck with a lot of, well, not a lot of, but a couple of really evasive threats. You just bog up their board and shut down their powerhouses while you wait out your finishers to come down, essentially. So this, in the right deck, could be pretty good. But like Tony was pointing out, a 0/4 body is really hard to get around, so you could just be helping your opponent.
Yes, this card gets a lot better the more knights that you have on your board. But again, we need to draw the line between where too much is too much. And this does look like a format where that's possible as well.
All right. Diligent Excavator. It's 1 in a blue. This is a creature, human artificer, 1/3. Whenever you cast a historic spell, target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard.
This is a really weird card to evaluate. Any mill in limited is going to just come across as weird. I can see in standard there could be some possibility where you run Fraying Sanity, this Minister of Inquiries, things like that. But for limited purposes, I'm skeptical. Sentences are difficult. This will be a pawn, definitely a role player in whatever mill historic deck that you're playing. I just don't see that this will be any good in if you were to try and go for that.
Yeah.
And if any of you draft that deck, please send us a list.
Yeah.
Hop onto our Discord at Dread Specters and show us the list. Talk to us about it, because I want to see it work. I just don't have any faith that it will. I won't cast this card at my pre-release for sure.
All right, Divination, 2 in a blue. Sorcery speed, draw 2 cards.
It's a pawn. It's one of the best pawns printed. You'll play it in every blue deck.
Yeah. Love cards. And, getting 2 cards for 3 mana is not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all. All right. Homerid. Homerid. Explorer. 3 in blue. It's a creature, Homerid, scout. 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard.
What more can I say about this than I said that I haven't said about just the last card? Oh,
Yep. Not
whatever,
that
the
last
Miller
card.
guy, the Diligent Excavator. These two belong in a deck together. They're both common, so something leads me to believe that this is going to be a possible deck to build. But I'm not interested without 2 or
Without
3
the
of
other
each.
pieces, yeah. All right. In Bolus's Clutches. 4 blue, legendary enchantment aura. Enchant permanent. You control enchanted permanent. Enchanted permanent is legendary.
This is a bishop that really wants to be a queen. Hijack effects are really kind of hit and miss, whereas effects like this are generally great. You can just steal your queen. You've gotten your pawn all the way to the other end of the board, and now it's time for the payoff, and that's what this card is.
Exactly. All right. Carnes Temporal Sundering. 4 blue, legendary sorcery, which means you can only cast this spell if you own a legendary creature or planeswalker. Target player takes an extra turn after this one. Return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Exile this card.
I love this card. I want it to work. There is a legendary creature in every pack at minimum, which means that in Draft and Limited, you're going to likely be able to cast this card, and I want to. It's possibly a bomb. The timings, it's possibly a queen. It lies somewhere in between bishop and queen. The fact that it's going to be a little bit difficult to cast makes me hesitant to call this a wonderful card. But this is the legendary set. I'm going to try it every time I open this card.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right. Merfolk Trickster. Blue. It is a Merfolk Wizard 2/2 with Flash. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. It loses all abilities until the end of turn.
This is going to be a great card. I hate to keep coming back to the Halcyon Witness, but doing this in response to trading life totals is just a good way to rob your opponent. No, that's not true.
You would, if they go down to 4, you want to do it before combat damage, so that they're not getting any life off of that creature.
Yes,
so
that's the way to do
it
that.
would work.
Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen. I got hit in the head earlier today. It was a very brutal. Interesting to note on this card, it is a wizard. It is somewhere between a pawn and a bishop, closer to bishop, though, as well.
Yeah. All right. The Mirari Conjecture. It is a 4 and a blue. It's another saga. The first time it comes down, or when it comes down, you're going to get a return target instant card from your graveyard to your hand. On your next turn, you're going to return a sorcery card from the graveyard to your hand. And then on the last one, you're going to, until the end of turn, whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery spell, copy it. If you choose a new you may choose new targets for the copy.
This is a perfect king. This is the very definition of a perfect king. If you open this up, pack one, pick one, you know exactly what you want this deck to do. And that's what it is. It's going to be a very powerful card. You do need to have instants and sorceries in the graveyard at very precise moments. So this is going to be a very skill-intensive card to play around, but it's going to pay off spectacularly when you can.
Note to remember when using this card, any of the X cost spells will be copied for their X cost.
Ooh, good call.
But yeah, I feel
cool.
Yeah. All right, Naban, Dean of Iteration. 1 in the blue. It is a legendary creature, human wizard, 2/1. If a wizard entering the battlefield under your control causes triggered abilities of a permanent you control to trigger, the ability triggers an additional time. So it's Strionic Resonator on a stick.
Yeah, pretty much. It does have the constriction of wizards entering the battlefield, but other than that, or rather because of that, it is a king. Pack one, pick one. You want to just take all of the wizards that you can with enters the battlefield effects so that you can build on that. It's a king. I'm really not interested in playing this card unless, I've got 6 or more other wizards.
Yeah. Or pack one, pick one. All right, Naru Meha, Master Wizard.
Kameha. Meha.
Meha. The Master Wizard. It's 2 blue, legendary creature, human wizard. It is a 3/3, so not bad. It does have flash, which is always great. It is a wizard, so it'll synergize with a lot of the other things we've seen so far. But when it does enter the battlefield, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Other wizards you control get +1/+1, so a lord as well.
Yeah, this is a mix and match of all of the best. She is a combat bishop. She makes things very complicated for your opponent in combat. She is an absolute queen. I mean, look at her. But she's a powerhouse. She generates so much value. It's unlikely that you get 2 mythics, but if you play her with the Mirari Conjecture,
you win.
You've won the game.
Yeah.
Straight up. Also, with the wizard constriction... Oh, no. Never mind. She's between all 3 of those and a wonderful card.
Maybe a king.
Maybe a king, for sure. Because you do want to have a lot of instances and sorceries at different times.
And kind of the wizard build as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, opt. 1 blue, scry 1, then draw a card.
Classic pawn. You'll play exactly 1 of these in your blue decks. 2 if you're in control.
All right, Precognition Field. 3 in a blue. It is an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library. You may cast the top card of your library if it is an instant or a sorcery. Tap 3, exile the top card of your library.
This is a bishop that is also aspiring to be a king. It's got the constriction that it looks specifically at instants and sorceries, so pack 1, pick 1. You know what you're going to want. But a bishop is something that makes the game complicated for you or your opponent, that lets you attack things on a different axis, and this definitely does that.
Oh, great. Relic Runner, 1 in a blue. Creature, human rogue, 2/1. It can't be blocked if you cast a heroic. A historic spell this turn.
This is a fine card. It's a pawn. It's a pawn with some upside, but if you're not playing it in the blue whatever historic deck, it's really just gonna look. It looks like it's going to fall short.
Agreed. Mediocre if you don't have any historic spells, at best.
Yeah.
Rescue, 1 blue. It is instant. Return target permanent you control to its owner's hand.
This is a bishop. I don't know a lot of what you're going to want to do with it, except it does have some use with your sagas if you don't want them to trigger anymore. There's the one that destroys all lands. So you could play that card, destroy all lands, and then rescue it to bring it back so that your opponent no longer has any of those lands that would come back for subsequent chapters. Mm-hmm. That's mean.
That's kind of mean.
This set's going to be a lot of fun.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
This is absolutely a synergy piece. I can't imagine playing it just on the off chance that it's going to save a creature from a removal spell.
EBTs, or if you want to hit any kicker costs again on creatures, or something you could keep in mind for using this card. But yeah, other than that, it's just kind of an anti-removal card.
It is definitely a role player instead of a card that you'd run because it looks like it could be powerful. Mm-hmm. You need to have a specific reason for it.
All right. Sage of Latnam. 1 to blue. It's a human artificer. He's a 1/2. Sacrifice an artifact, draw a card if you tap him.
This is a pawn, pretty classic pawn. You want to... It is a good pawn if it's in the right deck, mm-hmm. and virtually unplayable if you're not playing with a lot of artifacts. Fortunately, there are a lot of other reasons to play artifacts, so this can find a home with some frequency. Something that I should say is that this has a lot of similarity to Rummaging Goblin, mm-hmm. in that it is a slow advantage engine. Mm-hmm. It is... I think it's going to be better here than in Rivals of Ixalan Draft, for example, because we are looking at having longer games of Magic.
Yeah. Sentinel of the Pearl Trident. 4 and a blue. It is a Merfolk soldier, 3/3 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile target historic permanent you control. If you do, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
This is going to be a rook in your historic deck. It's going to be pretty underwhelming outside of that context.
Agreed. Slyn Voda, the Rising Deep. 6 blue, legendary creature Leviathan, 8/8, with a 2-cost kicker, 1 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return all creatures to their owner's hands except for Merfolk, Krakens, Leviathans, Octopus, and Serpents.
This is a queen. Absolute queen.
Oh.
She is a reason to run 18 or 19 lands in your deck, because here's the thing about this card. I am not wanting to cast her for 8. Absolutely not. When I'm casting her for 7 blue, I want something huge, splashy, if you will, mm-hmm. and she provides in spades.
Yes, she does. Syncopate. X and a blue. Counter target spell unless its controller pays X. If the spell is countered that way, exile instead of putting it in its owner's graveyard. What did I say?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Syncopate.
It's classic Clash of Wills kind of a card. It is a counter spell. Given that we're looking at a big mana set, I can actually see playing this to some great effect. Counter spell decks in draft are generally not where you want to be, ever. I will gladly experiment with one of these, and I mean, we'll see. Tune into the stream, and we are definitely going to experiment with this card. I'm not very enthusiastic. I'm not hopeful, but it could be a role player in the format.
Agreed. All right, Tempest Gin, blue. It is a Gin, 0/4 flyer, but he gets +1/+0 for each basic island you control.
This is a knight with a very low floor and a very high ceiling. It's an evasive threat that is only going to get more powerful the more lands you play and the closer you get to a mono blue deck.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of monocolors or possibilities out of these cards that we've been seeing out of the set so far. I like it for that reason. If you are in blue, heavy in blue, it can come down as a really powerful 9.
Personally, I hope that monocolored good stuff decks do exist. We haven't gotten to play that for a while, and I'm really looking forward to doing it again. Fingers crossed that it's in this set.
All right, Tatsuko Umazawa, Fugitive. So, legendary creature, human rogue. Creatures you control with power or toughness, 1 or less, can't be blocked. He's a 1/3.
This is it is either a knight or a king, and that's it. It itself can't be blocked, which is great. 1/3 isn't the most exciting power and toughness, but there are other things that you can do to make it great. It'll be underwhelming as a knight. You are going to want to build around this card.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just going to be a good blocker.
Yeah, a good blocker. There are some really great cards with low toughness and high powers that would be really great with this card.
Absolutely.
All right, Time of Ice. 3 blue. It is a saga. Chapters 1 and 2. Tap target creature an opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Unstap. It doesn't untap for as long as you control this.
Wait,
so until
really?
the saga goes away.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so 2 different creatures, essentially. The first one will tap down for 3 turns, essentially. The second one will get to tap down for 2. And then return all tapped creatures to their owner's hand. So it will hit both of those creatures.
Yeah, this is a bishop. This is very disruptive. It taps down your opponent's 2 best creatures and then deals away with them. Not permanently, but you do get 2 turns rather without their influence. This is a very good bishop. It's not a bomb by any means, but I will play it in any blue deck that I have.
For 4 mana, that effect's not bad. Getting 2 bounced creatures and essentially anywhere up to 4 turns without having to deal with one of them.
In a way, this is a super reflector mage effect. So, yeah, it seems like a great card.
It's okay. All right, Tellurian Scholar. 2 and a blue. It is a human wizard, 2/3.
This is a pawn. It has 1 relevant word. We saw one of these in white. Its only relevant word was knight. The only relevant word is wizard.
Yeah, agreed. Very vanilla-y, very true-esque to mana, getting a 2/3/4/3.
Yeah, if you pulled a wizard king, play it. If you didn't, probably not.
It's going to go on the board. Unwind.
Unwind. She is on a ship. She might be in that doldrums area.
Right. What is she playing with? Who cares? It is a spell. A very beautiful woman. Picture, anyways. 2 and a blue. Instant. Counter target non-creature spell. Untap up to 3 lands.
I've made clear my stance on counter spells in limited. It's not great, but it is going to be a great sideboard card if you see some particularly powerful sagas or things like that that you really wouldn't be able to attack otherwise. And if you are just in a counterspell deck, it's free. Untap 3 lands is very good as well. So I'm going to give this a bishop, and it's fine whenever you want it.
Yeah. All right, Darien Arcanist. It is 1 in the blue, Merfolk Wizard. Add a colorless mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast instants or sorcery spells. 1/3 creature.
This is just a straight up pawn. When you know that you're drafting this deck, pick it up. I can't imagine that you're going to need to pick it up early if you're drafting it, because if you're not in wizards, if you're not in the spells matter archetype, you don't want this card.
No, not at all. Weight of Memory It is 3 blue, sorcery speed, draw 3 cards, and then target player puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard.
This is a fine card. We've all, in draft, we've played 5 mana, draw 3 cards. This gets a little bit of a bonus for whatever mill deck you can put together, if it's possible. There are some Reanimator shenanigans in the deck as well. So this has potential to be a rook in the right build, but it's going to be a pawn, and I'll generally play this card, especially in any of those kicker decks where your mana gets to be big already.
Agreed. All right, Wizard's Retort. 1 blue, instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a wizard. Counter target spell.
This is your classic bishop. People are making a big deal about the fact that it's a counter spell, but no. They're making a big deal about the fact that this is counter spell, but at the same time, this is just a counter spell at best.
So if you have a wizard, it is counter spell, which is amazing. It's great. Getting any spell for 2 mana, you can't beat that. But with the wizard needing to be there, it's most of the time just going to be mana.
Yeah, a little bit rough. It's fine. More of a constructed card.
All right, Zahid, Jin of the Lamp, legendary creature Jin. He is a 5/6 flyer who only costs 4, 3 and a blue, if you can tap an untapped artifact you control. What do you think, Tony?
This is the finisher for the blue-white historic deck, the blue-whatever historic deck. This is your classic rook. It's going to be the best payoff card for that deck. It's everything you want it to be. It flies, so it is the wind beneath that deck's wings as well. So I'll play this every time I open it. Is there anything interesting you see about this one?
Other than that, no.
Fair enough. Great card.
Great card.
It is a reason to play in blue. In many ways, it's a king. If you open it, pack 1, pick 1, you know exactly where you're going.
Yeah. It is a little high cost if you can't hit the cost reduction on it. 6 mana for a 5/6 flyer is meh.
It's quite good.
It's good.
But at that point, it's just a glorified knight, and with an effect like its cost reduction, we're not interested in a knight.
Yeah. All right, Memorial of Genesis.
Genius.
Genius. Oh, yeah. It's a little far, folks.
Eyesight is a very difficult concept here.
Memorial of Genius. It is one of those tap lands. One of the better ones, I feel. Because not only does it tap for blue, but you can tap 4 in a blue and sacrifice it to gain 2 cards.
The effect here is a little bit pricey, but again, I will play 2 of these lands in any deck where they go in. Draw 2 cards is a great card. I mean, Divination's in there. If you can curve Divination into 2 powerful effects into this, you're going to win that game. As long as you've got something to do, and this fuels it. So, it's a great card.
Great card.
And I think that is our last card in blue. It is indeed.
Alrighty. Well, thank you again for joining us. This has been another Dread Specters production. Tomorrow we'll be reviewing Black, so join us again then. Other than that, have a great night, folks.